Honorable Senators, I too rise today to speak to the speech from the throne. I know many of us attended the speech where the Governor General outlined the government's plan to forge a new, more progressive Canada in the midst of the ongoing global pandemic posed by COVID-19. Firstly, the government enshrined its commitment to prioritizing the health and safety of all Canadians as we continue this fight of our lives. Secondly, they illustrated the need to support Canadians and their businesses as they brave the worsening economic storm presented by COVID-19 pandemic. The government made big promises to build back better with the goal of creating a stronger and more unified and resilient nation. Finally, and most importantly, the government vowed to stand up for equality, walk the road of reconciliation, and fight all forms of reconciliation. Honorable Senators, I am confident that the government is sincere in its desire to build a better Canada, in which all Canadians, and I stress all Canadians, can feel they're accepted and included. They can feel that they are part of our great Canadian society. However, in order to truly achieve this, we must all walk together. We have, especially in the Senate, we are guardians of the rights of the marginalized people. And we, as senators, have to stand up and speak out for those that are most vulnerable around us. Greg Fergus, MP, who you all will know is the chair of the Parliamentary Black Caucus, kindly provided me with some information on the federal government's current financial commitments to address these ongoing and daily crises which racialized, namely Black and Indigenous peoples, continue to experience. And he stated, since 2018, the government has provided $25 million to build capacity in Black Canadian communities. It has provided $45 million for new anti-racism strategy and $9 million to support Black Canadian youth, $10 million for culturally focused mental health programs, and $221 million to help thousands of Black business owners grow their businesses as we recover from COVID-19 crisis. 85 projects worth $15 million have been selected through a call for proposals to support the ARAP's objectives, which will help combat all forms of racism and discrimination, including anti-Black racism, anti-Asian racism, anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia. On the global stage, Canada is recognized as being a pluralistic, inclusive, and forward-thinking nation. While we have made great strides to combat racism, Honorable Senators, much work still needs to be done. We need to walk our talk. We need to remain committed to eliminating all forms of discrimination. We, especially senators, cannot lose sight of or omit the fact that we too, which have been founded on a history which has dispossessed and continues to discriminate against racialized and particularly First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We have much work to do as Indigenous communities face.
Senatrice Jaffer, I have to interrupt you because of it is 6 o'clock.
Honorable Senators, it is now 6 o'clock, and pursuant to Section 33I and pursuant to the order adopted in October 2020, I have to leave the chair until 7 p.m. unless there is consent that the session not be suspended.
We are suspended until 7 o'clock. Senator Jaffer, you will have 10 minutes remaining in your speaking time.
Thank you. Honorable Senators, as I was saying, that we must not lose sight of nor omit the fact that we too have been founded on a history which has dispossessed and continues to discriminate against racialized and particularly First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We have much work to do as Indigenous communities face an unprecedented health crisis, while many are simultaneously living on over-policed and underfunded reserves, the conditions of which many scholars and academics have referred to as being akin to that of underdeveloped countries. Canadians, we are expecting the federal government to deliver on the promises made in the throne speech. The throne speech must be followed by tangible action and unequivocal condemnation of ongoing normalization of racism. Over the past few years, I have been working alongside many activists, such as the African Descent Society in my home province of British Columbia. As you know, Senators, that many of the first African Canadians settled in British Columbia. When I think about that, it really saddens me that not a lot of Canadians know that Sir James Douglas, the first Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia, was born in Guyana and emigrated to British Columbia in 1870s. Indeed, people of African descent settled in British Columbia long before the province joined the Dominion of Canada, and even before the incorporation of Vancouver in 1886. When they arrived, many of the first immigrants built amazing African-Canadian communities in the heart of Vancouver. They built successful businesses, and they made Vancouver their home. One of those communities is often called the Hogan's Alley, but it's correctly known by locals as Strathcona. I have vivid memories of driving around Vancouver and seeing Strathcona, as well as so many other communities that are a cornerstone of Vancouver's strong values of openness, inclusivity, and diversity. Tragically, way too many of these communities have been forced to endure the terrible impacts of development and urban renewal projects imposed onto communities of African descent in Vancouver, particularly Vancouver's downtown east side. In Strathcona, following far too many development and gentrification projects, the Vancouver Heritage Foundation states, over the years, the Black population endured efforts by the city to rezone Strathcona, making it difficult to obtain mortgages or make home improvements, and by newspaper articles portraying Hogan's Alley as a center of squalor, immorality, and crime, close quotations. In response to this, by the 1960s, many of the homes and businesses that made Hogan's Alley what it was were demolished and replaced with the Georgia Viaduct. And in 1971, the Georgia Viaduct was joined by the Dunsmuir Viaduct. In 2021 is a part of the International Decade for People of African Descent. The United Nations Resolution 68237 calls for all UN member states, including municipalities, provincial and civil societies, to recognize that many contributions of people of African descent around the world. In that vein, while the community is still not what it once was today, it warms my heart that there are plans to expand Strathcona and return the community to a hub for all people in Vancouver, regardless of their race, class, ability, and ethnic background. It is my honor to work with Yasin Kiriga and Ritar Biwali, both fellow Ugandans, on trying to revive and have a better acknowledgement of the African communities that were living in this area before. Honorable Senators, as I said, I continue to work alongside local and provincial activist organizations, such as the African Descent Society of BC. It is my hope that these communities will be rightly recognized for the invaluable contributions to Canada. I stand on the shoulders of Rosemary Brown, the first Black MLA in BC, and Emery Barnes, the first Black speaker in British Columbia, for setting the path for all of us to succeed. Senators, I reach out to you and say, I set out with all the programs that the government is going to establish. But those programs mean nothing if the community doesn't feel part of our great country. And so I reach out to you all and say that it is going to take efforts of those of us who harness the highest levels of parliamentary power and privilege to continue to hold our leaders' feet to the fire and ensure that they recognize their accountability to all Canadians. Senators, we have made various speeches today to raise with you issues of our different parts of our country. But we come to you with one voice to ask that we cannot forget what happened last July, and we can never go back to that place. Thank you very much.